Okay, I think we're ready to get stuck in. Um, Hi and welcome. This webinar's main focus is preparing for verification and audits using SafeFood Pro. We won't really be discussing setting up an account. If you're interested in something like that, I would recommend our other weekly webinar next week, which will be based on fully like getting started with a SafeFood Pro account. Now, again, this one will be focused around using SafeFood Pro to prepare for an audit. Now, a little bit about myself. My name is Joshua, and I am a customer help specialist here, and I also make a lot of the video content. Now, some main things that I'll be covering today is I'll just be doing a live demo, and I'll pretty free form go through a bunch of different ideas and topics of the different aspects of SafeFood Pro just to make sure that we cover all the bases. And then we'll have a Q&A section where if you have submitted any questions throughout the webinar, we can go through those together and I can go back into the product if necessary and address those questions. And then lastly, we'll go over some support and success resources because we have a lot of documentation. Obviously, verification and audits are like the end goal of using SafeFood Pro, so we want to make sure you feel supported in that. It's all well and good being able to set up an account, but feeling comfortable and ready in a verification and audit is very important. Okay, now let's kind of get stuck in. The kind of things I wanted to start with were the things that are easy to miss. So with SafeFood Pro, the way that it's mostly set up is that we are able to schedule forms to be completed. So, daily operational forms like cleaning checklists, temperature checks, cooking forms, weekly cleaning checklists, monthly forms, those are all pretty easy to complete because on the app, we have daily, weekly, and monthly. Those are the most easy ones to access on the mobile app. Now, if you're familiar with food safety, you'll be aware that there are different food safety aspects to kind of tend to, such as completing maintenance checks, staff training, things that only need to be completed when they need to be completed rather than on any kind of fixed schedule. And so I want to take a brief moment to kind of discuss, well, maybe not so brief, a brief moment to discuss these different aspects. So let's start with updating maintenance. A big key part of using SafeFood Pro is you have this equipment register over here. Now, when setting up a piece of equipment, you can set up a maintenance cadence, I guess you would say. It's almost like a schedule, but basically, in this cadence of time, so once every month, we'll remind you to do some maintenance checks. Now, we don't schedule a form for this. You actually do need to go and seek out the form to complete to log maintenance in SafeFood Pro. Now, if you're finding that there are a few bits of maintenance that haven't been done, so for example, for this freezer, we can see the last maintenance was due in February. So how do we amend that in the system? Now, again, I want to point out that the main focus here is kind of going through your account and fixing up loose ends and making sure you're feeling confident for a verification or audit. So the way that we kind of amend this specific issue is we want to head over to the mobile app. And just for context, for this webinar, I've got the admin console, which can only be accessed from your computer, my.safefoodpro.com or .co.nz if you're in New Zealand. And then I've got the forms on the web kind of mobile app view. So I'll kind of be jumping between the two of these throughout the webinar. So the way that we're going to update the maintenance manually and log this maintenance is we want to go to the green plus icon on the mobile app. And this opens up our form library or ad hoc forms. Now, ad hoc just means when you need them. So they're not necessarily on a schedule, you just seek them out when you need to complete them. So in the list, I'm going to find the regular equipment maintenance register. This is the form that you want to complete to kind of update that maintenance schedule. And it does it automatically. So there's a little bit of smart hard coding in the system that connects this form with the piece of equipment, and it automatically updates that date field. And it also connects that maintenance form that you've just completed to the piece of equipment itself. So just as an example, I'll click on this form. What equipment has been serviced, checked, maintained? I want to find the freezer. And then just log what I did. Took it apart and checked. Pipes. All is well. Okay, no follow-up required. I think we're okay. When I click Save Final, I just need to log my name. Wow, first try for a pin. That's pretty good if you've seen other webinars of mine. Okay, now if we refresh this page, we can see that's moved up to the next 6 months. So in 6 months' time from now, we'll be reminded to complete that maintenance again. Now, that's maintenance. If you find that in the list there are pieces of equipment that need maintenance, that's the process to go through. So just find the form, the regular equipment maintenance register on the mobile app, complete it to log the maintenance. I know it's not the biggest part of food safety, but I know that I think it's Australia, you need to log maintenance for your fridges and freezers semi-regularly, like once every year or twice every year. Okay, so that's updating maintenance. The next thing we want to do is actually see and view whether or not we have logged staff training for our staff members. And to do this, we want to go to the staff and users page. Now in here, we get a full list of all the different staff members in our account. And there are a couple of ways we can deem whether or not they've completed any staff training. The first way is actually from this page, and we can go into each different staff member, click the pencil icon to open up their details, and head to staff training. And this will indicate whether or not they have completed a Safe Food Pro staff training form. If you haven't, and you're doing training outside of Safe Food Pro, and you've got certification for food handling and such, you can actually log that documentation in the system by going over to resources. So again, if you don't want to use our templates, you may still need to upload some documentation into the system just so that you know where it is. I'm aware that in Australia, you have to have these kind of certificates for food handling. Whether or not you upload it into the system is up to you, but I would highly recommend uploading it when you have it and you're setting up your account and preparing for an audit so that everything is just in the same system. Yeah. And to do that, all we need to do is click the green plus icon, head over to add a certificate or permit as a resource, and then go through and add the details. You can click add new file to actually upload a file from your computer. And the last, but probably the best part of this is you can upload an expiry date. So for example, if the certificate is going to expire in a year's time, you can add that expiry date into the system and be alerted for when it's going to expire. So very handy, and I highly recommend doing this if you're not using Safe Food Pro to complete the training, but you can log the training in the system as well so that it covers those bases. So that's staff training. Now, if you wanted to use staff training to complete training forms, we do have a few options for you. Now, again, these forms are under the ad hoc forms library because you only need to complete them when you need them rather than on a fixed schedule. So to find these forms, all we want to do, head over to the mobile app, again, click that green plus icon and find our training forms. Now, you have a couple of options for finding these. First of all, you could just go by category so that you see all of our training forms within one place, or you can just search for the form. Now, if you want to cover off like the minimum requirements, I would highly recommend the induction training form. This goes over, again, just the real basics, like should you wash your hands, that kind of stuff. Really simple. But I recommend doing this for any food handling people within the account. Now, I'll cover how to actually export this information and show your verifier or auditor down the line, but this is how you complete those forms. Now, for any of our New Zealand customers, we also have a specific training of business procedure form. And what this does is it goes over what training has been completed in the specific parts of your food control plan. So, for example, if you would like to log that your chef has completed training on proving their cooking method, you can log that training by just going through, clicking their staff name, selecting what part of the food control plan this training relates to, and then just briefly describing the training. Now, this is more specific for New Zealand customers. However, I understand that this is getting rolled out to more countries and such. So just keep that in mind. Again, we do have a form builder as well. So if these training documents don't quite match your needs, you can actually adjust them to your needs from here. Now, that is staff training. Another kind of part of preparing for a verification is making sure you've completed your scheduled forms. So unlike ad hoc forms, which are needed to be completed only when they need to be, we also have these daily, weekly, monthly forms which need to be completed regularly. Now, you might want to actually go back in time and make sure that everything has been completed. I would recommend using our reports page to do this. We have a very specific page called the completed calendar that I'd like to run you through briefly. So if we go to reports and head over to completed calendar, let's adjust the date range, and I'll talk about it just a little bit more. Oops, there we go. No, that's not showing me what I want to see. Let's go back to March then. Oh my God. There we go. Okay, cool. Now, from here, what we can see is the amount of scheduled forms completed on any day. Now, hopefully your account looks a lot better than this. Obviously, I only use this when I do webinars and such. You should be seeing higher numbers across every day. But what it gives us an indication of is when were their forms missed and, what can we do to fix this? So for example, on Tuesday, the 2nd, we have 5 out of 7 scheduled forms completed. Now, what if I want to go back and actually fill in those gaps? There are a couple of steps to take, but it's super easy. So you want to head back over to the mobile app, and you'll see this date picker at the top. If you tap on it, you can go back to the date desired, and see what forms were completed and which ones are missing. So we can go and complete that missing form if necessary. Now, there are a couple of caveats with this. Because you're backdating forms, it's not the most compliant way of inputting your data. I would recommend adding a blue note. Now, what is a blue note? It's just a way to add additional context. Excuse me. It's just a way to add additional context to any given form that you're completing. So because we're backdating this form, I would recommend adding a little blue note. And just adding a note that you're backdating this form. Again, I would recommend treading carefully and not doing this for all of your forms. It's actually quite important. So you can backdate forms, but I wouldn't recommend doing it regularly just because it's not the most compliant thing to do. Okay. So that's how you can find that data and go back in time and complete forms. There are a few different use cases for this, such as, if your staff member completed their training way back last year and you forgot to log it, you can go back in time and just log that training for then. That's a little bit different than logging a temperature check from last year, so just keep that in mind. Okay, now I think that we're ready to kind of talk about reporting a little bit. Now, the reports page in Safefood Pro is how you export your data to show your auditor. The way that you do this may differ depending on whether or not your auditor is coming on site and you just want to show them the data in the moment, or if you want to send them the data before or after the actual audit. So in the case that your auditors come on site to the restaurant or the cafe, kitchen, etc., what do you do then? We have a page called Form Reports, which is what I would recommend using in this situation. What it does is it looks at all of the forms within your account, all the different templates. It finds how many were completed within a time frame. So from the 1st of March to the 30th of April, I've completed one weekly cleaning check, and we can tell based on that little number. And we can see a few more lighting up here as well. Now, to actually export that information, I would recommend finding the form that you need. So this could be based on the category of the form or the actual name of it. And then click the green plus icon. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to look at all the answers and pull it into one document so that you can export this out or show your verifier. Now we can see it's a little bit clunky in this format. We may not want to show them like this just because it's a little bit more difficult to read. And that's why we've inputted these different exporting options. So in the case that your verifier is on site with you, I would recommend clicking the little printer icon. Now it's a little deceiving because while it's printing it, it's actually not going to print it to the nearest device near you. It's actually turning it into a PDF file so that you can kind of generate it in a more easy to view way. Now, in the case that you are showing your verifier, you're emailing them certain forms, you have a bit more flexibility around what you can do with your reports and the way that you manipulate them. So to illustrate this, we have this show columns visible field here. What you can do is click on it, go through the different questions, i.e. columns, and you can remove these. So for example, if you want to hide the repeat ID, since it's not really super important, or you want to remove the corrective actions field, just uncheck the box, and then you can email it to your verifier. By clicking that, and then inserting their email address and clicking enter. And that'll send them a file, let them know what company is actually providing them with this email address, this report, and attach a file with that report intact. So that's a good way of doing things. If you have any questions, again, use the chat below to let me know, and I can help cover any specific aspects of your verification or audit. Now, another note is if you actually want to view this one single file in detail, you can go over here and click the little eye icon. And this will show you that one specific form. Again, you can print it, email it, or delete it if necessary. Very good. Now, there are a few other ways we can use this page to prepare for a verification. The first way is, we can look at larger timeframes to get more forms on this page. And this kind of gives us an idea of what kind of food safety forms we've been completing across a large span of time. So if we go back to August, no, let's go back to June and head on back to April, click done. Then we get a bit more forms kind of pulling through to this page. Now, what I would recommend doing is actually sorting by this completed column. By double clicking that, we can sort by the forms that were completed the most and the least. So we can see a lot of daily pest checks being completed, lots of delivery forms being completed. But if we look through this list, we might notice some gaps in our food safety that we can kind of patch up or alert our verifier or auditor of on the day. And again, we can use backdating to kind of fill up these gaps, although again, I would advise stepping carefully on backdating, or you can just complete those missing forms before your verification or audit. Again, some of the most common ones are incidents and complaints, staff training, and like staff sickness forms. Those like troubleshooting forms can often be missed just because you need to go out of your way to find the form and complete it rather than just open up the app and you can see what's there for the day or week or month. So those are some things to bear in mind with reporting. Again, I'll run you through the process of exporting this out. If your auditor is on site and they want to see 3 months worth of temperature checks, then we can go, okay, cool, that's fine. Customize the date range in the top right-hand corner. Go through, select the date range, find the form that you want to export. So we can see temperature checks for coolers and cold cabinets, chillers, sorry. We can see 13 were completed. Click the green plus icon, and then we can see all of the different answers that were added. Again, if you're going to send this information out to your auditor and you have a bit more time to tidy up the report, you can use the show columns visible section here and remove different columns that aren't super relevant, or you can just show them by clicking the printer icon and kind of exporting that data so that it's all ta-da. You can see your reports will likely look a lot better than mine just because I'm not a power user like a lot of you guys are. Okay, now one last thing I'd like to say is that you can download this file by clicking the little download file and email them a bunch of different reports at one time. So in the case that after your audit, they're like, okay, I have a couple of corrective actions for you. You need to complete X amount of temperature checks over 2 weeks, and you need to send me that data and also some temperature checks for hot holding and cooking forms and cooling forms. You can actually export that data beforehand, clean it up, download it onto your computer, and attach all those files into one email and send it off. These are pretty mild file sizes, so they're not going to block up. No, they're not going to cause any issues when you try and send it. They're just PDFs. So go ahead and do that if they need it. Okay, now the last thing I kind of wanted to cover here were what was it? Okay, food plan details. If you're familiar with SafeFood Pro, we have this My Business page here. And this is kind of the business hub of your account. But your verifier might want a copy of basically all this information that you've input into the system. Now, how do you actually do that? What you want to do is head over to the food plan details page, or for our international customers, this will say plan details. Again, if you're from New Zealand, you're pretty familiar with the setup of this page. You have your different cards for different aspects of your food control plan. But as I understand, with Australia's regulations, they're rolling out some of these same ideas as well. So go through this list, fill out all this information, and make sure that it reflects your business practices and such. And you can click this little print or email icon again to export this information and send it off to your verifier if need be. Great. Now, the last thing I'd like to talk about in this webinar really briefly is allergens. Because there are multiple ways to add allergens into the system so that you can access it or show your auditor or verifier. The way that I would recommend doing this is creating an Excel spreadsheet with your food items in one column and what allergens are present in them. From there, you can export this as a PDF and actually upload it as a resource into SafeFood Pro. Now, what this allows you to do is show that you have a list of allergens in SafeFood Pro in the system. But what it also means is from the mobile app, you can go to the three bars in the top right-hand corner and head down to resources. And then your team can click on the resource and view it when they need to. And so it's technically being compliant because you have it at all times if necessary. And just to go over the process of adding a resource, you just click the green plus icon, select whether the file is a document or uploaded from your computer or whether it's a URL link. Add the file from your computer or insert the link, and then just enter the details of it, add a title and such. Okay, so that does it for our demo of kind of getting ready for a verification or audit. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them. I'll give you a minute or so just to get your thoughts together and submit those questions. And then I'll close out the webinar for the day. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and close out the webinar. Thank you so much for everyone jumping in today. I hope you got a little bit of value. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our support team at our email address, that's support@safefoodpro.com. And I'll also be flicking out a copy of this webinar as a Zoom link so that you can watch it down the line. But thank you. Thank you so much for hopping in, everyone. I hope you all have a lovely day and best of luck with your audits and verifications. I'll see you guys next week.